Usually when you're young, you are a time billionaire, i.e. you have loads and loads of time, but not much money. And then as we get older, we get more and more money, but we have less and less time and more responsibilities. So in this episode of Money Club, the ongoing series where we discuss the principles, strategies, and tools that can help us along our shared journey towards financial independence, we're gonna go over the top 5 ways to invest your money and also the top 10 ways to invest your time that I would do if I were a teenager all over again. Part 1, investing your money. Now, the first most important point when you're saving money when you're young is please don't try and save too much. I know it sounds counterintuitive, everyone says you should be saving money, all that kind of stuff, but you definitely don't want to be getting to the point where you are sacrificing fun experiences for the sake of having an extra few dollars in your bank account. Like for example, let's say you're a teenager and you're living in the UK or the US. If you have $50 or £50, that actually goes pretty far. It's going to be a big percentage of your monthly income, whether that's from a part-time job or from gifts and things like that. And you can use that £50 for a bunch of fun things like hanging out with your friends or going to the cinema or even going on dates or going on cool experiences, going backpacking. There's lots of stuff you can do with that money. Now, the reason why we shouldn't save too much as teenagers is because as we get older, our earning power is only going to go higher and higher. And because we're going to have loads more money coming in, that extra £50 is going to seem like a drop in the ocean compared to the money we actually make through having a proper full-time job. And really, as we get older, our happiness from spending the same amount of money decreases significantly over time. So if you think about 10 years from now, it really won't matter to your future self whether you save that £50, but the experience that you might have gone through hanging out with your friends rather than thinking, I need to save this £50, would have added to your bank of experiences just generally for a happier life. So really, when you're a teenager, it's important to keep in mind that the best thing you can do for your future self isn't really to save that money, but it is to spend that money on cool experiences that you can then look back on in your memory bank. Right, so having said that, point number 2 is that you should probably try and open an investment account. This is basically like a savings account, but if you put money into it, it lets you then invest it in the stock market in stocks and shares. Now, I've got a whole separate half-an-hour long video, which is all about an introduction to investing in the stock market, so we're not gonna go over all the basics over here, but that'll be linked up there or over there and down in the video description if you want more of a primer about why and how you should be investing in the stock market. Now, for example, in countries like the UK and the US, you do have to be over 18 to invest in the stock market as an individual. And so what you need to do is you need to ask your parents or your guardian or whatever to open up some kind of investment account for you, like junior ISAs like they call in the UK or custodial joint accounts that they're called in the US. It's going to vary depending on which country you're in. Now, the point of opening one of these investing accounts when you're a teenager is not that you're plowing all your savings into it so that your stock market money can go up. Really, the whole point of opening an investing account is so that you know what the process is like of actually putting money into stocks and shares. There are so many people I know who are in their sort of late 20s making good money, but have never invested in the stock market because it's always seemed like a mental barrier. It's like, oh, it seems so hard. And if they'd started doing it at a younger age, you know, even putting $5 in here and there, it just removes that mental, emotional barrier from putting money into the stock market. So that's really the point of doing this when you're young, rather than thinking, hey, the point is to make loads of money over time. Right, so once you've got your investment account, point number 3 is that you want to invest some small amount of money in index funds. Again, I speak much more about index funds in my more detailed video about investing, but essentially when you buy an index fund, like for example, the FTSE 100, you are investing some amount of money in the top 100 companies in the UK. Or if you buy the index fund, the S&P 500, you are investing a little bit of money in the top 500 companies in the US all in one go. For most normal people, this is way better than trying to pick individual stocks. Like instead of saying, oh, I reckon Tesla's gonna go up, I reckon Disney's gonna go up because I like watching Disney Plus or whatever, you just diversify your money by splitting it between these top 500 companies. Now, again, the point is not that $10 that you're investing in the stock market is gonna compound over time and make you millions further down the line. It will compound and that is a good thing, but it's negligible compared to the amount of money you are going to be putting into investments as you start earning real money. But the whole point is that it just gets you familiar with the experience. It gets you into that investor mindset of when you have spare cash thinking, you know what, I can just chuck it into the S&P 500. I can chuck it into an index fund and not think anything of it. Whereas if you wait until you're 25 to do that, it's going to be a big mental and emotional hurdle. So you should get over that hurdle when you're a teenager. So we're investing some of our money into index funds. I'd recommend we also invest a little bit of our money into crypto. Yes, crypto. Crypto these days, really interesting asset class. Interesting to learn about, interesting to follow. If you want to educate yourself about crypto, there are loads of channels here that do that. I've got a video up there, which is a basic introduction to Bitcoin. There's a chap called Packy McCormick who has a really, really good email newsletter called Not Boring. That'll be linked down below, which is a great primer on all things related to crypto. And again, I'm not saying put loads of money into crypto because you might lose it because it's still a fairly high risk investment. What I'm saying is put a little bit of money into it, make an account on Coinbase, link down below, verify your ID, all of that jazz. Make an account in whatever crypto brokerage platform exists in your country that is safe and reputable, and put a few dollars in here and there into something like Bitcoin or something like Ethereum. I'm about 50-50 split between Bitcoin and Ethereum. I don't really bother with like the altcoins or anything like that. I'm not a very sophisticated crypto investor, but I think it's sufficiently interesting that I put some amount of my kind of savings and my net worth into crypto. And again, the point is not that suddenly you're going to become a crypto billionaire and kind of money goes to the moon. It's more that you get an idea of what it's like to invest in this asset class, and you educate yourself more about what it's actually like to invest in crypto and all the stuff around Web3. And really, there's nothing like actually having skin in the game and actually having money invested into something like Bitcoin and Ethereum to really encourage you to explore it and take it seriously. And really, the educational value of investing in crypto is why I'd recommend it for teenagers rather than money going to the moon or anything like that. Finally, if you still have a little bit of spare cash left after actually spending money on experiences and hanging out with your friends and stuff, I would recommend that you invest some amount of money into books or learning of some capacity. Now, to be honest, when you're a teenager, you probably know that you don't necessarily need to pay for a lot of things. There are ways to get books, basically any book under the sun, for free on the internet, and you probably don't need me to tell you that. Similarly, software, similarly courses. Now, I'm gonna hold my hands up and say that when I was a teenager, I was a bit of a bad boy. I'm not gonna lie. I actually did pirate Adobe Photoshop back in the day. I'm not proud of it, but I now pay full price for it, and actually our team pays thousands of dollars a year to Adobe these days. I also, when I was 17, so 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now, pirated my first copy of The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Come on, you're killing me here.
Which was the book that most changed my life. Since then, I have supported all of the stuff that Tim does through his sponsors and stuff, so I feel less bad about it. But hey, just saying, probably not morally good, but you can make your own decision on that front. Alternatively, you can go to libraries to get things. Like, libraries are these incredible inventions where they just have books available completely for free that you can just read. And that's amazing, because then you can read books about business and learning and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff that will help you out further in life if that's the route you want to go. But investing some amount of your money into learning would generally be a good idea. Part 2, investing your time. All right, so let's talk about 10 different things that you can invest your time into when you're young. When you're young, you generally have loads of free time and not much money. So really, investing money is like a bit of a side hustle. Investing time is really where you can make decisions that move the needle for your future life, if that's the sort of thing you're into. And tip number 1 is to build a fastlane mindset. And you should read this book, The Millionaire Fastlane. If you don't want to read the book, you should, but I have got a video about it up there, and I'll link to the short form book summary of the book, which is also pretty good, and I'll link that down in the video description. But basically the book talks about, and genuinely it's sick, it's one of my favorite books about making money of all time, so 100% would recommend reading this if you're a teenager or even if you're not. And one thing he says in the book is that get rich quick is not necessarily a bad thing, because get rich quick is what we're trying to do, quick meaning in under 10 years. Get rich easy is the thing that is non-existent, and anytime someone is promising you a path or a course or anything to get rich easy, they are trying to scam you, because there is nothing to that. There is no easy way to get rich, but there are quicker ways to get rich than others, and they generally involve building a business. So you can read the book, you can educate yourself about the idea, and kind of start thinking, instead of this slow lane approach of get a good job, go to university, blah, 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 retire at 65, try and think more around what can you do to build wealth in the short term by building some kind of business that provides large amounts of value to lots of people at scale. Tip number 2 for investing your time when you're young is to learn useful and in-demand skills. Now, even today, learning to code is still one of the best skills that you can have. I had dinner with a chap yesterday who learned to code, did a computer science degree at university, in fairness, and now he's earning $750,000 a year as like a 27-year-old working for some tech company in the Bay Area. It's absolutely absurd how much money software developers are making these days. I even know people who didn't go to university. Like, I've got a friend who left school at the age of 18, didn't go to university, taught himself how to code using the internet, and then got a job as a software developer within a year of actually teaching himself how to code. And I think was making $80K a year as his first salary, and that's just kind of slowly grown over time as well. And especially with all the stuff around Web3 booming these days, like being able to code in something like Solidity, or being able to program stuff for the Ethereum blockchain or Solana or Polygon or all these other things that I don't particularly understand. If you can actually get into that world, and it's not that hard, there's free tutorials on the internet, there's YouTube channels dedicated to this sort of stuff. If you can teach yourself that stuff, that is a skill that's ridiculously high in demand, and you can use it to either build your own thing, your own little startup, your own product, your own Web3 company, or you can be hired to someone else's thing, or you can join an early stage startup. There's so many options if you learn how to code. And honestly, if I was young, in fact, if I didn't have this YouTube channel, I would be spending all of my time basically, even at the age of 28, learning how to code in Solidity and becoming a Web3 developer. But I've got this YouTube channel, so I'm more of a media person than a code person these days. Tip number 3 for investing your time as a teenager is to document your learning and your journey in some capacity. And the easiest way to do this is through writing. So this can be through a blog, or through posting on Twitter, or writing on Medium, or writing a newsletter on Substack. There are all sorts of different platforms where you can document stuff through writing. But this is good for 2 reasons. Number 1, it helps build the craft of writing, and being able to communicate well through written language is also an incredibly valuable skill that makes you ridiculously valuable in the job market, that also makes anything that you start, any business that you do, more likely to succeed because now you're able to communicate, whether it's writing copy for your landing page or writing sales page stuff or even sending emails. Just being able to write competently and in a nice way is a huge competitive advantage. But the second reason why documenting your stuff is good is because it's really nice to look back upon. Like, I've read so many books, like probably hundreds of books in my time so far, a lot of them when I was a teenager, and a lot of them really changed kind of the way that I was thinking. But because no one told me I should start a blog back then or like document it in some capacity, all of those like learnings, all of those experiences, all those memories are sort of lost in the void of my brain. And as we know, the brain is not a great device at actually recalling stuff because memories fade over time, all that kind of fun stuff. So documenting your journey is good for your own personal memory bank. But there's a third reason, I forgot there were three, a third reason why it's kind of helpful as well. And that's that you might well build an audience of people who are interested in the stuff that you're sharing. It's pretty unlikely unless you really take it seriously. It's not something that like happens by accident. Most people who do it well are very intentional about it. But there's definitely the scope to then potentially build an audience of people who really enjoy your writing. And even if you're a teenager, even if you're 13, 14, 15, like whatever, there are probably people out there in the world who would be interested in reading about the stuff that you're sharing, especially if it's about documenting your journey through entrepreneurship or through learning cool things, anything like that. So that was the world of writing. But if you're interested in potentially making videos, maybe starting a YouTube channel, maybe doing a TikTok, maybe posting stuff on Instagram, YouTube is still pretty sick. That brings us to tip number 4, which is to learn about video production. Again, this is one of those ridiculously valuable skills that all companies are now on the lookout for. Every startup I know is trying to do some kind of content marketing play. And so if you can educate yourself around cameras, how to use a camera, how to talk to a camera potentially, how to edit videos, stuff like that, you again have a massive competitive advantage if you are looking for one of these jobs in the future, or also if you're trying to promote your own thing, which you might want to do at some point further down the line. And if you don't already have these skills, the best way of picking them up is by actually taking my own course on Skillshare, which is called YouTube for Beginners. Skillshare are very kindly sponsoring this video, so thank you Skillshare for that. But I've got about 12 classes on Skillshare, and there's this new one that I've just released called YouTube for Beginners. And that class is about 4 hours long. I think there's about 30 lessons in it. And it takes you step by step through how to actually build a YouTube channel from scratch, starting with like the concept, how to talk to camera, how to set up a camera, how to edit videos, how to do thumbnails, all of that stuff. And that is a great introduction to all of the skills required to be a YouTuber, which are all the skills required to do the video production thing well. Now, the reason this is in investing your time rather than money is because if you are one of the first 1,000 people to hit the link in the video description, then you will get a free trial to Skillshare for a whole month. And in that month, you can take whatever classes on Skillshare you want. So you can take all of my classes. I've got like 10, 12 classes on there now. There's absolutely loads. You can take my YouTube for Beginners class. You can take my How to Edit Videos in Final Cut Pro class if you want to learn more about video editing. You can even take my 3 productivity masterclasses where I share everything I've learned over the last 5 years around how to be more productive and how to get more out of your time. And on top of that, there are thousands of other classes on Skillshare covering all sorts of topics from business, entrepreneurship, like productivity, interior design, cooking, everything under the sun. There is a class for it on Skillshare. So if that sounds up your street, then do hit the link in the video description, sign up for a free trial, take my classes. I think they're really good, and learn about this video production stuff because it really will add value to your life in a really solid way, I hope, if you're investing your time well. So thank you very much Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And let's now move on to tip number 5, which is to become money literate. And this basically involves investing your time in learning and reading and watching videos about money to become more money literate and to educate yourself about this thing that's quite important to how we live our lives and how society runs. We've already talked about The Millionaire Fastlane, which is the best book I'd recommend on how to make more money. Next, we have Die with Zero, which is kind of interesting around how to spend money if you're interested in a sort of philosophical take on the topic. We have The 4-Hour Workweek, which I've long talked about as being the single book that most changed my life and treated the way I approach my life and retirement and business and all that kind of fun stuff. We've got Your Money or Your Life, which changed the way that I approach my career. Like Vicky Robbins makes some really interesting arguments in it. I actually have a book club video about it. Actually, I have a book club video about a lot of these. They'll all be linked in the video description if you want to check them out, if you don't necessarily want to read the books. And finally, we have The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, which is generally a way to become more financially literate and to understand the emotional and often irrational mindsets and thought processes that govern our approach to how we spend money. And I've also got a book club episode about that linked up there and down there if you want to check those ones out. It's not just books if for whatever reason you're unable to read. There are also loads of YouTube channels that talk about money in a really nice way. Graham Stephan and Andre Jick are some of my personal favorites. But now let's move on to the second half of the tips on how to invest your time. And this is investing your time in gaining experiences. And so tip number 6 here is to get some kind of job or gain some kind of work experience. This is really helpful. Generally getting a real job or some kind of work experience or a part-time job makes you some amount of money. I used to work for £4 an hour or $5 an hour teaching maths to people when I was younger. younger. And it doesn't really matter what you do. The point is having that job gives you an idea of like, oh, okay, this is what it's like to actually spend some of my life energy to give some of my time to this thing and to get money in return. And you also learn a few skills along the way, like how to deal with colleagues and co-workers and how to have conversations with your manager. And these are generally skills that are very useful further down in life as well. Tip number 2 that I would say is to potentially do or make things for people that you admire completely for free. This is the idea of being a permissionless apprentice. For example, let's say that you admire an author or a YouTuber or a TikToker or something. If there is a way that you can create something for that person, maybe you take one of their videos and turn it into a tweet thread. Maybe you take one of their TikToks and you turn it into a little nice infographic poster type thing. A, that helps you develop your own skills in using Photoshop, in doing graphic design, in writing, and all these other skills that are quite useful. B, it also helps you develop those skills in a kind of fun way because now you have a tangible output and you're actually potentially helping someone. And C, it might even get you noticed by that person. There are a handful of people who, for example, with me over the years have been very, very helpful in, for example, we hired a guy recently to turn one of my tweet threads into this really cool visual graphic-y type thing. And we hired him because we just saw his work on Twitter where he was doing this for other people for free. And we were like, damn, this guy's really good. So we paid him a bunch of money to do this graphic, and that graphic did really well on Twitter. Similarly, there are other people, some people who I now work with who started off basically cold emailing me being like, hey, I've created this thing for you for free. What do you think? And we're like, oh, this is awesome. I want to hire you as a person. So basically there's a bunch of benefits in like finding someone you like and like creating something for them, in improving your own skills and potentially getting you into their network as part of their network. Tip number 3 is a big one, and this is to try and find a way to build a business when you're a teenager. So when I was younger, I had a little business doing web design and web development for small businesses, and I was charging like $5 an hour, trying to undercut the market. But the skills that I gained during that are so much more valuable than the small amount of money I made. And it really helped me get into like what it's actually like to work with a client, what it's like to pitch and sell my services, what it's like to negotiate stuff. And I was like regaining all these skills randomly from the age of like 13 to 18. This is stuff that you don't learn in school. And so when I got to university and actually started my first successful business, I already had this sort of 6 years of experience through trying to make money through web design and web development stuff that I was selling to clients from all around the world. Back in the day, I used to use a freelance website called getacoder.com. That's no longer a thing, but these days Fiverr and Upwork and People Per Hour, there are all sorts of these different platforms where you can potentially find clients for the services that you want to kind of sell to them. And obviously you want to be good at those things. So this involves developing skills and then finding a way to sell your services in a way that adds value to other people. But broadly, it's a great way of building a little side business even while you're at school, in the weekends and in the evening. Tip number 4 is that if you can, and this is actually quite hard, but if you can, try and find a way to turn your active income into some kind of source of passive income. So if you can figure out a way to create some kind of product or some kind of digital product or sell something that is not directly tied to your time. Again, MJ DeMarco talks much more about this in the Millionaire Fastlane. That is really kind of the ultimate place to get to, where you could potentially even be making money while you sleep. Something like starting a YouTube channel is actually a pretty good shout as well, and you can definitely check out my Skillshare class if you would like to learn how to start a YouTube channel. But the great thing about YouTube videos is that anytime you make a YouTube video, once you're beyond 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time, so you get into the YouTube Partner Program, every single video you make is an asset by itself. So for example, right now I'm investing time into making this video, but this video is going to be on YouTube, well, for the next several years, I hope. And people are going to keep on watching this video 2 years from now, I hope, if the video is actually good. And so I'm going to be making AdSense money even while I'm asleep, and therefore this video becomes a kind of passive income asset. I'm not saying that to make money on the internet, you need to do some kind of social media, you need to show your face, you need to debase yourself on the internet like I've been doing for the last 5 years. You don't necessarily need to do that, but we just want to be thinking more about like, is there some way I could kind of start out with some kind of active income source where I'm directly trading my time for money by offering a service, but then can I turn that into some kind of productized service? Can I read something like The Millionaire Fastlane, or another really good book called Take Your Shot, or for example, The 4-Hour Workweek? There are so many books and so many YouTube videos and stuff that break down the process of doing this. This is not that hard. I'm still surprised when I get emails and Instagram DMs and stuff from people just being like, bro, can you give me advice on how to make money? I'm like, bro, the advice is already out there. Like all you have to do is go and find it and actually execute on it. There's no magical advice that I'm going to give that's someone's suddenly going to, put hundreds of dollars in someone's bank account. It's really about educating yourself about the process, reading books, potentially, even if you don't enjoy reading, because books are incredibly useful value for money, especially this one. This one's absolutely sick. And then when you execute on that, A, you're developing your own skills, but B, you're also hopefully making money on the side. So that was tip number 4, try and passivify your active income. And one of the best ways to get started with passivifying your income is tip number 5, which is to try and dabble with outsourcing. Yes, this does require that you have some amount of money coming in, but if A, you've got a part-time job, you started making your own business, you've started selling your services on the internet on one of these freelancing platforms or through other people, you should hopefully be making some amount of money right now, even as a teenager. At this point, you want to be thinking about what is actually your realistic hourly rate? And is there a way that you could potentially outsource some stuff to people who are making less than that, or that you can pay less than that amount of money. For example, when I was building my business at university, there was a lot of stuff that required data entry, like taking stuff from previous exam papers and putting them into our database with permission, all that kind of jazz, of course. But I wasn't going to sit there copying and pasting stuff from like one PDF into a database. And so I hired this chap through Upwork who was charging $5 an hour to do basic admin and data entry, and I paid him for like several tens of hours to do this work, which would have otherwise taken me tens of hours. And in a way, that was a way for me to passivify the active income that I was making by teaching courses and by helping people get into med school. Again, I'm not saying you're going to make millions doing this. That's not the idea. The idea is that, especially when you're a teenager, it's useful to develop the skill of what it's like to actually hire someone else. If you're a YouTuber, for example, what it's like to outsource editing, like what would that actually look like? If you're a business owner, what would it be like to work with a virtual assistant who helps you with emails and calendars and stuff? You don't have to do all of that kind of stuff, but it's just worth at least dabbling in the space so you get some experience of what it's like. Now, with all that said, and if you're still watching this, firstly, thank you. I hope you found this video useful so far. But the final thing to keep in mind really is that we don't want to be thinking of these things as like sacrificing today for the sake of a better tomorrow. I think generally one thing that I've learned over the years is that it's really all about enjoying the present moment and enjoying the journey as we're going along. And if I think back about like my web design career when I was from age 12 to like age 18, I don't think about the money that I earned, and I never really saw it as being a sacrifice. But what I remember is the feeling of excitement that I'd get home from school and I'd be so excited to get back on the computer to see, has anyone hired me for a project? Can I learn some more PHP stuff? Can I do some more tinkering with this online game that I was building? And that was such a joyful and exciting and exhilarating part of my life. What I didn't do was that I didn't feel like I needed to sacrifice anything in my real life to make that happen. I wasn't invited to many parties when I was young anyway. That might come as a surprise to some of you. But for example, if it was like, some friends who invited me over to play PlayStation or hide and seek or something, obviously I'd still do that because that's like the fun stuff. But rather than sitting at home and just watching TV, instead I got even more joy out of life by doing this web design stuff. So what I encourage you to do is not think of it as like I'm sacrificing my free time right now for the sake of a better tomorrow so I can make more money. Instead, more about thinking like, what are the things that I can do that I can develop an interest in? What are the things that I can do that I enjoy, that energize me, that are generally fun? So that even if I don't make any money, I'm still glad that I spent the time doing those things. And a lot of these 10 things that we've talked about in investing your time, you want to find the ones that really fill you with intrinsic joy, or find ways to make them more energizing and make them more fun, so that you end up enjoying the journey and not just being fixated on the destination. If you've gotten this far in the video, then thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more videos in this Money Club series, I'd love it if you can leave a comment down below with a little money bag emoji of some description, and just tell me what video you'd like to see. I love talking about money. I've been reading books about it for the last like 15 years and actually building businesses since the age of 12. I'm now 27 years old, so a long time. And I really want to share everything I've learned along the way. So if you have ideas for videos that you'd like to see, please do leave them in a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, you might like to check out this video over here, which is my ultimate guide to how to get started with investing in stocks and shares. That'll give you a full primer on everything you need to know. It's the video that I wish I would have had when I first got started with investing in stocks and shares. So thank you so much for watching. Do hit the subscribe button if you aren't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.